Late last year, Chevrolet pushed an emergency software update to the Chevrolet Bolt EV. This was to address an issue in a handful of Chevrolet Bolt EVs that resulted in the cars going poof, catching fire. Obviously, catching fire is not a good thing for EVs to have. And so Chevrolet issued a temporary software fix, which essentially reduced the maximum state of charge that any Chevrolet Bolt could charge to, at least one that had the update, because the risk of the car catching fire seemed to happen when the battery was at or near full state of charge. So as a precautionary measure, Chevrolet pushed out this software update. You had to go to your dealership to have it applied. And then it told us that sometime this year, a software update would be pushed out. If you have watched Transport Evolved Shorts this week, you'll know that that update was pushed, announced mid-week. And because we like our staff car reports to be about life with the particular vehicles we happen to have chosen, as you might know, myself and my wife both drive a Chevrolet Bolt EV as our daily driver. And so today we got up at the butt crack of dawn and headed to our local dealership, where they programmed the update into both my car and my wife's car, Orion and Artemis, because why not? So let's take a look inside, see what's different, talk about the update, and let you know what the process involves. So let's talk about the original Chevrolet Bolt operation for 2017 through 2019 Bolt EVs, and then what that temporary fix last year did to the Bolts in order to try and restrict the risk of cars catching fire. When the original Chevrolet Bolts left the factory, they came with something called hilltop reserve mode. Hilltop reserve mode allowed you to stop charging at about 90 to 95% state of charge and left you that extra 5% of buffer, so that if you live on a hill, as I do, when you leave your house and you go down the hill, you can use regenerative braking to put some extra power into your battery pack, essentially for free, although you did have to climb the hill in the first place. In non-hilltop reserve mode, the car would just charge to 100%. 2019 Chevrolet Bolts did it slightly differently. They had a slider that allowed you to set your maximum charge rate, but it had that same functionality as hilltop reserve mode. When there was an issue identified with the Chevrolet Bolts, what GM did was it removed the hilltop reserve mode completely, and it forced all Bolt EVs after the update to only charge to about 95% state of charge. This was because all of the fires that had happened had occurred when the cars were above 95% or near full state of charge. And that's a more risky point for a battery to be in, because it's got extra energy in, and that's the point where the battery is under extra strain. So by removing that top 5% of the state of charge, they reduce dramatically the chances of your car catching fire. Today's update puts everything back, but adds a new software subroutine that you and I can't see, that sits on one of the computers inside the car, presumably the battery management system, and monitors the battery pack in a different way to what it did when it left the factory. GM claims that that battery algorithm can identify problems with the cells at the cell level before those problems get to a point where they cause an imbalance in the cell and cause the battery to ignite and catch fire. So this particular update was carried out after many, many months of engineering, and GM says it's confident that it's removed the risk of those fires occurring. Obviously, we'll see, because I've just had the update done to my car. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term thing or not, but let's find out what the update looks like when you turn the car on. So this morning, I can only charge to about 95%. I didn't very often see more than 200 miles on the gasometer because that top part of the battery pack was effectively off limits. So let's turn the car on. I'm just going to turn the radio down, because that happens, unfortunately, when you turn the radio on in a Bolt EV. It not only bings at you, but it also turns the radio on. It's just a thing that they all come with, and it bugs me, but there's nothing I can do about it. Turning the car on, I have charged it to 100%. Normally I would leave it at 95% and use hilltop reserve because I live on top of a hill. But today I wanted to charge it up to 100% so you could see what the gasometer looks like. Right now, the car says in maximum optimistic, you will drive really well, I will get 227 miles out of this charge. If I drive it like I stole it, it says I'll get 157 miles out of the charge. And I'm sure I could make it go down even further if I took it out and drove it really, really hard for 10 minutes. It would probably say less than 100 miles. Similarly, if I go out and I hypermile it and I drive it really efficiently and really, really carefully, then that maximum figure will go up as well. And I've seen that over 300 miles before, 400 miles, if you drive it just right, if the weather conditions are just right. And these range predictions change according to the temperature and according to how you drive it, how you drove it previously. Right now, based on my last 20 or 30 miles of driving, the car says I've got 192 miles of range. That is what I would expect. And there is a caveat to this. I have just climbed up 800 feet to this house from the valley floor. And so when I get in the car in the morning, it is always pessimistic about real world range, because the last thing it remembers me doing was driving up to 800 feet elevation. And that does make a big impact on that predicted range. If I took this out for a drive now, by the time I got to the bottom of the hill, it would probably be predicting 240 or 250 miles. So that's why my car is saying right now that it's got a lower range than EPA. But I know if I was driving this on the flat, I could probably achieve the original EPA for this car, which was 234 miles. If I go into the energy screen, I can see that Hilltop Reserve is available again, and I can turn that on. I turn it on, always on home only or home away. And in order to do that, you have to tell the car where home is. After the update, it will have forgotten where home is. It's part of the software update. Don't ask me why. So you have to go into location-based charging. You have to hit set home location, which it's just done. And then you'd have to tell it to turn on location-based charging. Then you go to Hilltop Reserve, and then you can actually tell it to do it when you're at home. So Hilltop Reserve is now active. This means I'll probably go out tomorrow and drive this for a bit. And then the next time I plug it in, it will only charge up to 90% state of charge. So there you are. It took about an hour for my car to be done. My wife's car was done at the same time. If everything works out with your car and there's no problems, it'll take about an hour. As part of the process, before they upgrade the firmware, they run some software to determine the health of the battery pack. And if the battery pack fails, then you might have to keep your car in at the dealership for a couple of days while they source a new replacement module for whatever modules have failed in the pack. They will be replaced free of charge. But if everything's okay with your car, and it was okay with mine and my partner's, then they'll do the upgrade and send you on your merry way. Thank you for watching. Thanks to our amazing Patreon supporters. If you haven't already, please hit the bell. Make sure that you subscribe, because it makes a real difference both to this main channel as well as Transport Evolved Shorts and Transport Evolved Take 2, because that really ensures that YouTube has less likelihood of doing something stupid. Thanks on behalf of the entire team go out to our $15 to $49 a month patrons. They are Guido Drahota, Bronfy Wolf, Anonymous Freak, Regine Fellows, Kyle Hodgson, Gordon C, Paul Conway, Laura Sanborn, Anthony Coates, Sean Ueda, and Tazlet in the Gong. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters. They are, as I'm sure you know, John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, and Ian. If you would like to join the ranks of amazing Patreon supporters, just follow the links below. They are to Patreon, Bitcoin, and Ko-fi. You can head over to Discord and chat with TE members and the rest of the TE family. If you want to talk about this in depth, it's a great way of doing it. And if you fancy some TE swag, point yourself over at Redbubble. We are doing a special Pride Edition t-shirts and swag in the coming months, because June is Pride months. So make sure that you go over there and support a really good cause. We're doing everything in aid of the Trevor Project. I'll be back soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, keep evolving.